Alright, welcome to the Ironwood Gym. Today we're going to go over how to properly unrack and walk out a bar when you're squatting. And this is probably one of the biggest things that people screw up. You know, from a coaching perspective, we always teach the squat, the execution of the squat itself. Even from a lifter's perspective, a lot of times we focus only on the squat. But it's unracking the bar and walking it out that sets up a good squat. So if you screw that part of the lift up, then the squat isn't going to go as well as it could. I'm going to try to cover this. It's going to focus probably more for the lifter, the power lifter, the weight lifter, the strongman, CrossFit athlete. But I'm going to try to tie in some tips for the strength coach that's working with a soccer player, a tennis player, a football player, whatever the case may be. Now, your normal athlete doesn't need to take it to this extent. I'm going to really try to focus on some details here that you don't need to really go over. Athletes aren't lifters. They're athletes. They don't need to focus on every little detail of a squat. But there are some things here that I'll try to touch on simultaneously as I'm going through it that would benefit the athletes. Okay, so but starting off, the first thing you're going to do when you're walking up to a bar is you're going to take your grip on the bar. And you need to make sure it's the same every single time you do it. So don't walk up one time and just slap your hands on and be uneven, or slap it here once and then move your hands in closer the next time. You need to make sure you're using the same grip every single time you use it. From my perspective, it's not a big deal to me as how wide or how narrow you're going to be. I grip where I grip the bar at is due to my shoulder flexibility. I can't get any narrower, and being wider I don't really think helps me. So that's how I've determined my own grip width on the bar when I'm squatting. If you have worse shoulder flexibility, you might not be able to come in wider. You may even have to go, or come in closer, you might have to go even wider on the bar. If you have good shoulder flexibility, you might want to come in closer. That may help you get tighter as you go through your squat. So for me, I'm going to go on a power bar about 3/4 of an inch to an inch outside the rings. Okay, and I'm going to get that set. When I take my grip, I actually want to grip onto the bar. I don't want to do this fingertip stuff. All right, you need to have a solid grip on the bar because you should be pulling that bar down into your back as you're squatting. That goes for athletes as well. They like to come up and get their fingertips underneath the bar or on the bar and then rotate their elbows through. No, you want to actually grip the bar. You're going to pull your elbows down, but you shouldn't be able to pull your elbows through due to a lack of grip. The only time you're going to do that is when you're front squatting. All right. When you're back squatting, you got that bar on your back, you want to grip the bar, you want to pull the bar down. Your elbows should not be able to go in front of you. From there, once I have my grip established, now I'm going to work at rotating under the bar. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my feet in a good position to help me, basically the position that I'm going to want to have them in when I take the bar out of the rack. This isn't necessarily going to be your squat stance. Now, if you're in a mono lift, you want to get them exactly where you're going to have them when you squat. But for the purposes of a walkout, if you squat with a wide stance, you actually want to start with a narrower stance to unrack the bar, and then you're going to move your feet out. So take your grip on the bar. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk my feet up under the bar. And for me, that's going to be probably halfway in between a narrow stance and my wider stance that I'm actually going to squat with. But that's kind of personal preference and where you're going to feel the strongest at. Once I get my feet, my hands are going to get set. I'm going to walk my feet underneath the bar. From here, I'm going to rotate under. I'm going to make sure I'm centered. I'm going to rotate underneath the bar, and I'm going to put the bar exactly where I want it on my back. Okay? Once I have that, I'm going to go through 3 steps, okay, before I take the bar out of the rack. There's going to be 3 things that I'm going to do. 2 of them, number 2 and number 3, I'm going to do almost at the same time. But the first one is going to be, I'm going to squeeze my traps as absolutely as tight as I can get them. I'm going to pull my shoulder blades back together, and I'm going to pull my shoulder blades down at the same time. The entire time I'm doing that, I'm getting my traps absolutely as tight as I can get. Okay? And I want that bar squeezed into them as hard as I can get it. If I loosen my traps, I'm not going to have the full tightness. I'm not going to be able to get as tight as I can. And it's going to set myself up for possibly starting to lose my posture as I'm squatting. So I want my traps to be as tight as I can get them, and it has to happen before you ever take the bar out. That's going to be my first step in getting tight. My second step is going to be taking my lats and pulling, and with my hands at the same time, I'm pulling that bar down into my back as hard as I can. Okay, I've already got my traps tight at this point, or before then. Now I'm actually squeezing that bar down as hard as I can with my lats, and I should feel my lats actually contracting as I'm pulling that bar down. At the same time I'm pulling with my lats, I'm going to tighten my abs. Okay? Now, I learned to squat back in the 90s, okay, back in the early 90s, and at that point in time, the big cue for your back was to arch your back. Okay? Everyone wanted you to arch your back, and you squatted with a big arch. We've learned a lot since then, and we know that that is not the position that you want to be in. It's not the strongest position, and it could lead to back injuries down the road, or in the short term, as far as disc injuries. So what we really want to do is we want to get a neutral spine position. So as I'm pulling down with my lats, I'm going to tighten my abs. And when I do that, it's almost like performing a partial crunch. Okay? I'm going to tighten my abs as much as I can as I'm pulling my lats down, and you're going to see my spine start to straighten out. When it does that, I'm getting rid of my arch, and I'm pulling myself into a more neutral position with my spine. What that allows me to do is it allows me to have my spine in a stronger position, and allows me to utilize my abs. Okay, I can't, if I'm arched like this, my abs are elongated, my abs are lengthened. I cannot keep them as tight as they need to be in a lengthened position because they're stretched out. Now, if I start to crunch my abs down, they're in a shorter position, they're starting to shorten, and I can keep my abs much tighter. Think about that with a bicep. And I don't have the biggest arms in the world, but with a bicep, if I'm here, I can't really flex my bicep because my bicep is lengthened. Now, if I start to bend my elbow, okay, you start to feel that bicep get tighter and tighter and tighter, because in a shortened state, it can contract, or it is contracting to be in a shortened state. The same is true with your abs. When they're in a lengthened state, you can't, remember that lengthened state of the bicep, you can't really tighten up your bicep at that point. But as I shorten it, now you can feel your biceps start to get tighter and tighter. When I'm arched, I can't contract my abs very well. As I crunch them down, okay, I don't want to do a sit-up, I don't want to go into a rounded position, but as I crunch them down, they're going to get tighter and tighter. So as I'm pulling with my lats down, I'm going to breathe out forcefully, and that each one of those exhales will actually be tightening my abs. My abs will be crunching and they'll be tightening. So if you did that at home, okay, you can do that as you're watching this video. If you're standing up, that's a forceful breath out. That's a hard, forceful breath out. And what's going to happen at the same time is your abs are going to tighten up. And I'll probably do 2 to 3 breaths to forceful exhale, which will cause my abs to tighten up as I develop a slight crunch, which will pull that big arch out of my spine and then put my spine in a more neutral position. But that's happening at the same time as I pull my lats down. Okay, so this is what that's going to look like. Quick recap. Hands, then my feet, tighten my traps up absolutely as tight as I can get them, then pull my lats down and crunch my abs at the same time. Okay, so hands, feet underneath the bar, pull myself under, put the bar where it's supposed to be, tighten up my traps, pull the bar down with my lats, and tighten up my abs. From there, now I'm ready to take the bar out of the rack. All right, so now we've went over how to properly set up for a squat. And most of what I've said can be applied to, of course, a power lifter or a strongman, also a weightlifter. A weightlifter will use a higher bar position, but they still want to get everything locked in, basically just how I talked about, to make sure they're ensuring proper tightness while they're squatting. Now we're going to move on to how to properly unrack the bar, or take the bar out of the rack and walk the bar out. Okay. Like I said at the start of the video, this is the most commonly screwed up part of a squat, and it happens before the squat even starts. So this first part, taking the bar out of the rack or unracking the bar, the most common problem I see, well, besides the fact that they may not have set up properly, but the next problem that I see is them rushing to get the bar out of the rack. You don't need to rush, all right? Make sure your feet are underneath you, stand up easy, and then you're gonna take your steps back. The one thing that, and this could be debated whether it's part of the setup or part of unracking the bar. I think it's more a part of unracking the bar, and it's what happens right before you actually take the bar out of the rack. And some people like to do it after they take the bar out of the rack and after they walk it back. I like to do it before I take the bar out of the rack. For me, I've got to get that locked in. If I've got to redo it, that's fine. And what I'm talking about here is that last breath you're going to take. And I'm not going to go into depth about the Valsalva maneuver or about how you hold your breath. I'm going to hit just a little bit on that. If you don't know how to properly hold your breath while you're lifting, you need to get with a qualified coach to teach you. Okay, because I'm not going to do it here over a video. And for some people, health reasons may dictate that they shouldn't be holding their breath while they're lifting. That's about all I'm going to say on that as far as that. It's not for everyone, but I do like to hold my breath while I'm lifting and use the Valsalva maneuver. So when I do that, I'm going to go through my setup first, and then after I get set up, I'm going to take that deep breath. I'm going to breathe down deep into my belly, okay? I'm not going to go, I'm going to breathe deep into my belly. And what you see there is the first one, my shoulders came up, okay? My chest comes up, my shoulders come up. We don't want that to happen. That's breathing into your chest. You want to breathe down deep into your belly. That's all you're going to do. I took my breath in and everything is tight. So I talked about how you crunch your abs down. You want to maintain that as you take your breath. If you need to let your air out as you walk the bar out or after you walk the bar out, that's fine, but hold that position that you developed as you took that breath before you unrack the bar. And then after you walk the bar out, you take a second breath if you need to, and then that'll fill your belly back up and you'll be ready to squat. Now, I used to be able to do it. Take my breath, take the bar out, step back, do 2 reps of a dynamic effort squat or 1 rep for a max effort on that same breath without ever letting my air out, and then after I rack the bar, I let my air out. I can't do that for whatever reason. I've struggled to do that as I've gotten older and as I've gotten stronger, or as I got stronger during my competitive career, and I've lost the ability to do that. Out of a mono lift, I could still do it, but I didn't have to walk it out. So, but anyway, here's how you're going to basically do that. Now again, the setup is the same. I'm going to go through just unracking the bar right now. I get my hands set, my feet are underneath the bar. I'm going to pull myself under. Trap squeeze as tight as I can get them. Bar is properly located. Pull the bar down with my lats. tighten up my abs. Now I take my breath and I take the bar out. Okay? So as soon as I take that breath in, I'm breathing deep into my abs, remember? I'm not doing that, I'm breathing deep into my abs. So there was no change in torso position, but as soon as I took that breath, I easily took the bar out of the rack. Not trying to rush it, I'm just standing straight up. Once I take the bar out of the rack, I'm ready to walk back. Now, mistakes on this, taking the bar out to the back of the rack, or if you don't have a rack, backing up 5 or 6 feet like I have actually seen athletes do when they're squatting outside of a rack. Okay? There's no reason to go that far away. This is your J hook, you squat straight up and down. There should be no forward movement of the bar. If you get back 1 step on each side, will put you about 6 to 8 inches away from those J hooks. That's all you need. You don't need to be any further than that. When I was squatting my heaviest and I cleared the rack, I would only be about 3 to 4 inches away. I took very small steps. Okay? Now when I'm training and the bar is lighter, I'll probably be more like that 6 to 8, maybe 10 inches back from those J hooks. But when I'm heavy, just a few inches away from those J hooks is all I need. Okay, so now I'll go through the whole thing. When I walk it out, it's going to be 1 step on each foot for a closer stance. For a wider stance, I'll do the same thing, 1 step on each foot, and then I'll take a 3rd step out to the side and a 4th step out to the other side. My toes, as most people will have their toes turned out a little bit, do that after your steps. So as I walk back, my feet are mostly straight ahead. Then, once I'm set, I just turn my toes to where I want them. Okay? If you need to retake your breath, that is the point you would do it, is after you get all your steps completely set, retake your breath, and you'll be ready to squat at that point. So here's what that should look like. Take my grip, rotate, get my feet underneath the bar, rotate under, trap squeeze tight, locate the bar, pull the bar down with my lats, crunching my abs down at the same time, take my breath, bar out, 1 step, 2 steps, out to the side, and I'm ready to squat. Okay. That's the basics, or that's how to set up properly. That's how to take the bar out of the rack properly, or how to unrack the bar, and how to back that bar out. The key thing is here, don't rush anything. All those little details make a difference in how much you could squat. In a competition, that may only be, if you're really bad at it, it may be a big amount. If you're decent at it, just tightening everything up and making sure everything's the same every time, that could be 5 or 10 more pounds on your squat. But that's a 5 or 10 pound bigger PR that you could set by doing that. So take the time, get set up properly, don't rush it. Same thing when you walk it out. You know, stand up easy. There's no need to rush standing up there. You don't need to be explosive taking the bar out of the rack. Step back easy, 1 step on each side. If you're a wider squatter, then take a 3rd step and a 4th step directly out to the side. Again, don't rush anything. Take your time and get it right, because if your setup, your unracking the bar, and your walkout are all right, your chances are your squat is going to be right as well. So that's about it. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments. I will definitely respond to you. If you have any feedback, leave that as well. But until next time, always be in the pursuit of strength.